Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, where right and left come to be reasonable. Hey, do you remember what the election was about? Do you remember how often we talked about what? Gas and groceries. Gas and groceries and get the border under control. Do you remember that? Here are the reasons that people voted for Trump. Right there. Right? The border had been built up. Rightly so. The Democrats dropped the ball. So it knocked economy to 2. But that's what it was, right? So why are we watching chaotic scenes all over the country and debating the National Guard? Why are we hearing more about kids in Gaza than in America? Why are we more focused on which side is making things worse, right? When it was supposed to be about making things better that matter here. That's what the election was about. The only move our government has made since the election was to shut it down. And yet, what the majority cares about hasn't changed. Poll after poll consistently shows the economy, crime/immigration, those are the top issues for voters. I say we are being distracted from what matters, and it should piss you off. And that is part of the reason that there are protests all over the country. You can check out on my podcast my longer explanation, which is about the pendular movements of our binary system. And MAGA now has complete reaction formation, equal intensity. There aren't just pissed off people on the right in this country. So, do you think that the military is being sent all over the country because crime is out of control? That's the narrative, right? What are the facts? This year alone, murders have dropped 20%. Violent crime is down 10%. Carjackings down 25%. The FBI's number 2, Dan Bongino, says, you know why? Trump.
The president, early on, with regards to this crush and violent crime, he says, what do we got to do to fix this? And we basically lay out a bunch of things, and his answer is very simple. President's like, go get them, boys. Go get them. And we cleaned up. At the president's direction, the director and I, with the SACs and the agents in the field, we water ballooned around the country and made, get a load of this, guys, this is going to trip you out, 28,000 violent crime arrests in 2025, and the year's not even over. Prior 3-4 years, the FBI under prior leadership had averaged about 15,000, 16,000.
Show us the numbers. And you know what would trip me out? Release the Epstein files, because that is real, and that's what you promised. And listen, brother, I wish you well doing the job of the American people, but the FBI is not why crime is down. Crime has been dropping in every category since the pandemic, and everybody knows it, all right? And no one did it with the National Guard or with the FBI. They did it with data and local policing and creating opportunities. I'll give you 2 examples. Davenport, Iowa. They teamed up with researchers, found out that less than 1% of their population was responsible for more than half of all the shootings. We did it in New York with Bratton, who was a legend for this. The broken windows made Giuliani's career as mayor. So what did they do in Iowa? They stepped up patrolling neighborhoods where that very small percentage of overweighted criminals lived. Then, what else did they do? Crime prevention programs. That's code for what? They help people get jobs. They help people get back to school, find opportunities and avenues to dignity, so they didn't have to turn to crime. Last year, they saw a 54% decrease in shots fired calls. Not the FBI, locals. Why? Because that's how you get it done. All the show with Trump using the military, but there's not a lot, to really base it on, right? And I'll tell you what bothers me. Look, let the courts decide where the president can send National Guard and where they can't, okay? But I don't like that if you care about crime, why are you cutting $200 million in the kinds of intervention programs that are actually proven to work? That worked in Iowa, that worked in Atlanta, okay? In Atlanta, they found 1,000 repeat offenders are responsible for 40% of violent crime. Now, by the way, this is not unusual, okay? A very small slice of our population is bad guys, but they overperform and they do a lot of crime. So you got to identify them and you got to lock down on them. Prosecutors sought harsher sentences in Atlanta for these repeat offenders, and they had a 16% reduction in the homicides as a result. Again, no military, no National Guard, no FBI, okay? The reason for all the drama that you're seeing right, that makes your social media so spicy is because it's a distraction. Gas and groceries are going in the wrong direction, and the tariffs are a reason why. Did inflation start going down during Trump's second term? Yes. Why? Dropping energy prices, which was about world demand and 100 different factors, and a cooling labor market, which is now a much bigger problem. I'll get to it in a second. But then came his tariffs. Now, they were punitive. They were meant to look muscular. But what would they really be about? Messaging for you, right? But also a signal to other countries to make new deals. The deals just haven't happened with the countries that matter most. So the tariffs are still in place. Right now, consumers are shouldering about half the cost of the tariffs. Companies the rest. So what happens? Prices are going up. People are getting laid off. Affordability is getting worse. Hello, No Kings. Hi, No Kings. Hi, millions of people all over the country. And by the way, anybody who tells you it didn't happen, it's fake, it was a bust, they're the problem, okay? Now, for me, protest is great. It just doesn't solve anything. Where are the solutions? Where are the helpers? Where are the ideas? I'm not criticizing the protest. Protest whenever you want, wherever you want, but not however you want, okay? Make sure you obey the law, and I thought this weekend was amazing for the lack of problems. It's great. But rounding up undocumented migrants, as we're seeing happen all over the country, it's not what the election was about. And a lot of them, even though undocumented, they came in the wrong way, but they've done everything right since. They're not bad hombres. They're good workers and good neighbors. By 2035, studies show that the immigration crackdown may eliminate 15 million workers. Who's going to take those jobs? We got 7.5 million open jobs now, especially in the manufacturing center. We're not making enough babies. We don't have enough people. What's the plan here? Look, feel how you want about that. Okay, feel how you want about the No Kings protests. MAGA has a matching movement of angry people who are disgusted with the system. They're just not all the way on the right with a red hat. They're all the way on the left and haven't figured out their name yet. Okay, but just like we saw with the folks in MAGA, they see this movement as a voice of their distress. They are desperate, they are pissed off, and they want change. Okay? And they're not wrong. For all this talk about what's happening in Gaza, okay? And look, I care, you're right. The suffering is enormous. But you got, like, what, 1 million kids there that we're all focused on all the time. Do you know how many kids are food insecure, which when I grew up we called that hungry. Now they say food insecure. You know how many you have in America? 14 million. Million in Gaza. You ready to put on your Sadat scarf and go out and ruin your college career. But here, 14 million, you don't do anything. 1 in 5 American children is starving. Again, 1 in 5 American children is starving. And you wonder why people are pissed off? And you wonder why affordability is a thing? And you wonder why people, see the National Guard and any sign of muscularity, any sign of help as hope? It is about the depth of the desperation. And it's politics at its cheapest. It's easier to exploit your anger, to piss you off about who is to blame for your pain than it is to figure out how to fix life for people on the bottom. And I'll tell you what, No Kings, it's easy to call out the top. It's easy to demonize the rich. Where are the solutions for those who don't have enough? That's hard. Bernie Sanders can give you his very compelling riffs about the top. What is he going to do for people at the bottom? Free, free, free. How do you pay? How do you make it saleable? That's what change was supposed to be about, and that's what people are still waiting for. But in that pain, in that desperation, there is what? Opportunity. That's what No Kings signifies to me. Millions of people across the country participated in an anti-Trump movement. That's what it was. I wish it was about these people that I'm talking to you about and what to do for them instead of just making it all about him. But there is opportunity in this for Democrats or for anybody else who wants to do well in the midterms. So where is that opportunity? How did it play out this weekend? What does it mean going forward? No better person to discuss than the legend, Democratic strategist, Mr. James Carville. Jimmy Jam, I just had someone in the van with me who's from Baton Rouge, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I said, I have James Carville on tonight. She said, who? Who dat? She said, who dey?
Can't be a prophet in your own land.
So, no kings means what to you, and what does it suggest about the opportunity?
Well, it means we saw 7 million Americans by estimate, okay? That's just maybe it was 6, maybe it was 8. I don't think there was a single arrest. I don't think you could get 7 million Cub Scouts and have anything more peaceful. What it says is people are distressed. They wanted to do something. I think you're right, not do a lot of good, but it was cathartic. If you're sitting there and you're just throwing stuff at TV, as I do very often, you go out and you go to the town square and you hold up a sign. And that's great. If it's nothing else, it's a great stress reliever. And boy, we have a lot of stress. I want to make one point, Paul, I'll let you go. You've nailed the crime thing. We know how to do this. It's called predictive policing. I'm sitting in a city that has the lowest crime rate it's had, murder rate, I'm sure, maybe crime rate since 1970. There are 375,000 people live in New Orleans. There are 725 people that commit 80% of the crimes, and you know their names. That's what America needs to understand. We need to explain to people that through technology and predictive policing, we can make a big dent in crime, and we're doing it right now. And we've done it here, and in San Francisco is now under 50-year lows in their crime rate because they got a mayor that's not afraid to do something.
So how do you finesse the narrative away from Trump wins because of his muscularity and sending in the military and D.C. is better, and show that Democrats have ways that are more American to deal with that and the big boogeyman that you invented for us in our generation of politics, that it's the economy, stupid, and gas and groceries is going the wrong way in most parts of the country?
Well, not only is gas and groceries going the wrong way, if you look at this budget bill, what the Democrats are insisting on is that they have subsidies so people can buy health insurance. Some of these insurance premiums go up for millions of people by $700, $800, $900 a year. People can't afford that. The problem we have in this country is half the country has no money. Okay, it's pretty doggone simple. But the truth of the matter is, the way that crime is being beat is not through the National Guard. God bless them; they do a great job. They'll sacrifice their families. It's being done by smart policing, smart technology, smart interventions. And we don't beat crime with a muscular approach. We beat it with a smart approach. And there are smart approaches being taken. You're looking at 2024. I think was as low as it's been since the 90s, where we had historic drop. But we know how to do this, Chris. We know how to do it. We can do it, and it's not done through soldiers or Marines or airmen or sailors or anything else. It's done through technology and well-trained police, and that's what we need, and that's what's working.
Hey, James, make the case. You say you're going to take health care from people. You didn't put it in the big, beautiful bill, which is now called the working class tax bill or whatever it is, but it's a deceptive title. And you have high ground. I pivot and say, you want to give $1 gazillion, make up a number because that's what 1.3 trillion is.
It's made up. It's a lot.
But you want to give $1 gazillion.
Right.
You want to give $1 gazillion to illegals, as the phrase on the right. That is the fix that Democrats are in right now. Whenever I talk to regular people about the issue, they'll tell you, man, I am this close to losing my health care or not being able to afford it, and you guys want to give it on the left to illegal immigrants. How did they get there, and how do Democrats fix that?
Well, first of all, it's not true. And so when people on television that know that say, first of all, this is what people say, but I must tell you that it's not true. It's written in. Now, look, if somebody is here illegally and they show up with a heart attack at the emergency room, you got to treat them. I'm all for that. I'll take the money out of my pocket. I'm not going to outlay somebody who's in health extremity to ask them to show me your papers, but it's just not true. And the way that you do that is that every juncture they say it, you repeat that it's not true. And you repeat the fact that what you're trying to apologize for is you raising healthcare premiums. I'm not kidding, like tens of millions of Americans by something that they can't afford. We're going to have more and more these costs build up and they show up at emergency rooms. And actually, I think to some extent, expanded health insurance probably saves money over a period of time. But if they just keep repeating things, we have to intervene and say, I'm sorry, that is not true. You want that to be true,
well, but
it's
James,
not.
you can't let them drive the narrative the whole time. If Democrats let Republicans drive the narrative, you're going to underperform in the midterms. So what is the 1-2 punch for Democrats for the midterms?
Well, honestly, I don't mean to be like that, but you have smart communicators being interviewed by smart interviewees, and you tell people what the facts are. You tell people you can check this out. I think people are a lot smarter. And if you give them what the truth is, and the truth is this is not going to expand coverage for people out of here illegally. It's written into the law. And you level with people, you would be surprised what you do if you level with people and say, we have the technology and the technique and the knowledge. We're taking a big hole out of crime, and we can take an even bigger one. And if you do that, then it takes a little while for the truth to germinate. What did Mark Twain say? A lie can go around the world twice before the truth can get its shoes on. Well, we'll get our shoes on, we'll get our boots on, and it might not be right there. But if you're giving people reliable, factual information, then you can do some good and you can matter. But this just does, and people can feel it. I feel safer walking around here.
Factual information and fixes.
That's all you can do.
Because you know the old adage: if you're explaining in politics, you're losing. But if you are giving people a reason to believe that things can get better, that's where the sweet corn is. James Carville, thank you very much for your intelligence.
I mean, that's not. No, we don't need. We can do better than that. We can give people facts.
100%.
We can assume that they're smart enough to digest it. And the facts are, crime is dropping in this country dramatically, and dropped under Biden, went through the floor under Clinton. But that's and we know that, and we know how to do it. That's the main thing we got to realize. We know how to do it. We got to tell people we're doing it.
People would be better with crime if they had more money to have stolen in the first place. That's going to be the thing. You put more bread in their pocket, then they'll worry about crime. Jimmy,
this country
be well. Thank you very
now.
much, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Take care. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. That's not Spanish, El Busto. Okay, so the stock market is very good. You know what Donald Trump used to say to me during the housing crisis in 2008? Then Citizen Trump, that's why I don't say president. Wall Street is not Main Street. He's right. You know what is Main Street? Your credit card. You know what is Main Street? Your car payments. Have you heard what is happening with credit cards and car payments and what it means about us? My good friend is coming on. This is what he does for a living, is make bets on these type of metrics. And he has something you need to hear.
We have a tremendous power, and that's the power of tariff. And I think that China will come to the table and make a very fair deal, because if they don't, they're going to be paying us 157% in tariffs. Right now, they're paying 55 to 57%.
Two things can be true at once. We struggle with this in our politics, in our society. The president isn't wrong about the imbalances in trade. Now, there are reasons for them. There are reasons why America was okay with that, other than just wanting to be taken advantage of. And if you're going to swing a big stick and it gets you better deals and more manufacturing activity here in America, that's great. But there was risk, and so far it has not paid off. And trying to pretend that the tariffs aren't an issue in the negative is BS. How do I know? Because this is what I do for a living, and I talk to people who really do it for a living, who understand the credit markets, who understand the trends and the metrics of our economy, and can make it understandable to you and me. One of them is my oldest friend, founder, Chief Investment Officer of Motum Capital Management. Don't ask me what it means. John McNiff. He doesn't need the glasses, but they make him look sophisticated.
Motum is Latin. You should actually know what it means.
What does it mean?
Movement. Mobility. Movement of capital. Yeah,
so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So you and I talk about the tariffs all the time. I'm like, well, it's going to help them make better deals, and that's what it's about, and there's some risk. And so far, they say it hasn't had any negative effect. What do you see that makes you feel differently, sir?
So as we've talked over the past few months, tariffs are a reciprocal, a negative tax on the lower income and middle class, right? And they adversely affect them more so than higher income people. And what we are seeing now, and one of the things I highlighted to you last week, is in the subprime auto market. And the subprime auto market is about, so people that qualify to be subprime are about 1/3 of the population. All right, so it's a large segment. Within that, 80% is the majority of that is middle class and lower middle class. Because you're lower or middle class does not mean you have to be subprime, but the facts are the majority of the subprime is those cohorts. 80% of our population are lower and middle class. What I see with this, and why I highlighted to you, is what we've learned over the past decades in the business of credit and seeing how consumers behave, is one of the last things they will default on are their auto loans. And why is that? You need your car in the majority of America to get to work, to get your groceries, to have a social life. You do not want to default on that. You will default on your rent or your housing, your student loans, all before you default on your car, because not being glib about that, you can also live out of your car. So the auto loan tends to be the last piece that people will stop paying. And so seeing this tick up is a big warning sign to me. You saw it highlighted this past week with Jamie Dimon, the CEO of the largest bank in America at JP Morgan, when he highlighted Tricolor, which is a subprime lender that defaulted out of the Southwest, as well as First Brands, which is an auto parts issuer. And he said, where there's one cockroach, there tends to be a lot more. So this, I think, is a real warning signal for not the higher incomes and not the better performing borrowers, but for the rest of America, where you start to see stuff like this percolate.
So what would you be looking for next, and what needs to happen for it to not continue this way?
Okay, so two things. One, we're going to keep our eye out for more increase in defaults related to auto loans, other auto-related industry companies. Second thing is we're at a deficit right now because we're not getting government data. Right. So how are we going to look at this? We have to look at kind of other metrics. So one of is obviously listening to CEOs speaking about what's going on in their portfolios. Jamie Dimon, great example of it. You look, at other bank earnings came out at Citibank, Wells Fargo. Again, all of them highlighting increases in delinquencies across loan portfolios. So we have to start to monitor that as we go in. The thing that's going to help is that the Fed cuts rates. The Fed meets next week. Markets anticipating another 25 basis point rate cut. That is on the front end of the curve. Most loans, auto loans, are 3 to 5 years, right? So that is going to help alleviate some of those refinancing pressures. But a lot of this is already baked in, because when you see someone go to delinquency 30, 60, 90 days and then default, right, it takes time. That the distress that's going on in the subprime market is kind of here to stay, I think, through the end of the year.
I have a question and a comment. The question is, explain to people why you're not getting data. And then, if you'd like to explain, you sound like you're just about to get a beating. You seem very nervous. And I just want to make sure it's not because I'm coming to your house this weekend and there's trouble coming your way. Take a sip of water, think about it, and then respond.
I literally just want to let you know that the reason why I'm nervous about you coming this weekend is the last time you came, you ate so much steak. There are other food groups other than steak, so please keep that in mind. I mean, I've never been eaten out of house and hold like that before. So yeah, I am a little bit nervous about my grocery bill, and the fact that there's inflation is really going to be expensive having you come visit. So that is definitely making me nervous. What was it?
Why aren't you getting government data?
Well, because the government shutdown. That's why. So we're not getting any of the economic data that usually helps drive the markets and gives us insight into unemployment rate, CPI cost, which is the inflation data, PPI. So we could kind of see these things. So we have to start to pivot away from the government data, because we're not going to get it. It's been 3 weeks of the shutdown now, just about. And you have to kind of look for this ancillary place. So one place to really focus is on data around the consumer, right? We've seen increases in credit card charge-offs and delinquencies. We're seeing increase in auto loan delinquencies and charge-offs, and specifically in that subprime sector, which is a driving engine to the economy, is 1/3 of the borrower base, and disproportionately represented, as I said earlier, by the lower and middle class, which is 80% of our economy. So to me, it's a really interesting focal point to pay attention to, because as you also said earlier in the show, Stock market's at all-time high. Mag 7 is a third of the stock market. So 7 out of 500 companies are driving 1/3 of the performance of the stock market. That does not determine middle class and lower class incomes and how they're feeling about the economy. It's very different when you talk about that with people that have assets and people that do not. So that was kind of the focus.
Well said, understandable, and appreciated. Thank you very much. I'll see you this weekend. You're still catching a beating.
Bring it.
4 minutes and 30 seconds. Take the glasses off. You don't need them. You would think that robbing the Louvre is only for the movies, okay? And when Dusty said, did you hear about the robbery at the Louvre? I thought she was talking about like the Thomas Crown affair or something. But nope, they did it. And I gotta tell you, this crime reeks of insider help, okay? 7 minutes. They were too stupid to take all the jewelry. They left their angle cutter. They left this crown. Somebody helped a bunch of guys who had like one smart way to do something really stupid. So what do we know about how they did it, and what reveals why they'll probably get caught and not soon enough? An expert in high-stakes theft next. Sometimes news just makes you laugh, you know? This robbery of the Paris Museum, the Louvre, in broad daylight, a group of 4 men dressed as construction workers, they use like this long ladder on a truck. They pry open a window using an angle grinder. Okay? They then walk into one of the most famous and highly secured museums in the world, right? I think it was in the Apollo, the Apollo setting, right? Which is like one of the most secure places. They don't have any weapons. There are tours going on. They break display cases, and they make off with a bunch of French crown jewels, right? Emerald necklace, Napoleon this, Queen that, all these like fancy things, right? They like drop a crown. The security guards come. They threaten them with the angle grinders. Do you know what an angle grinder is? It's like a transversely set drill. That's enough to keep the security off them. This crime smells of inside something. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's bring in the former head of the FBI's art crime team, Tim Carpenter. Tim, it's good to have you, brother. I got to tell you, I am not impressed, man. I am not impressed by what I'm seeing. The security backs off because the guy holds a drill up to him?
Yeah. Listen, I loved your intro comparing it to the Thomas Crown Affair, one of my top all-time movies, of course, right? You might guess. Right? But in that film, right, the guards had batons. They were really aggressive, trying to stop the perpetrators from stealing the art. It's not what we saw in this case, right? But listen, in reality, art crime isn't the Thomas Crown Affair, right? These guys certainly didn't have that level of sophistication. You've said it yourself. They broke in with angle grinders. This wasn't exactly laser cutters and suction cups climbing up the side of the building, right? It was fairly lowbrow. But look, they spotted a vulnerability in this museum's perimeter, and they exploited it. And so it's not terribly surprising.
But why during the day? Like, how do you get to that point, right? People do things at night for a reason.
Well, you know, that might be what you'd think on the face of it, but in reality, if we look historically at most major museum heists, and there are countless examples of this, thieves tend to target museums right at opening or right at closing. There's a couple of reasons for that, right? One, that's when the museum is most chaotic and most vulnerable, right? Staffing is just getting in place, shift changes, you've got visitors coming in, crowding galleries, it's a bit chaotic. But importantly, it's also when they turn off perimeter alarm systems, right? So you don't have perimeter alarms on generally when you have visitors inside. So clearly that's what the thieves were going for in this case.
Smart. Everybody on the government side says we're definitely going to catch these guys. The common person like me says, well, yeah, if they try to sell the jewelry, I guess that would be pretty noticeable. But, you know, a little bit of research will tell you that there are lots of ways to get rid of things without having to sell them as they are. What gives them such confidence?
Well, look, I think technology has improved vastly over the years, right? So there are a lot of things going in favor of the investigators on the ground there, right? So as you said at the beginning, these guys were good in one aspect, that they were fast and they had a good plan, but they were really quite poor on execution. They didn't do a great job, right? They left behind some evidence. And so that evidence is going to have forensic value to the investigators. They're clearly going to be scouring and canvassing CCTV footage, not only at the museum, but in the community as a whole, the entire city, the entire country, and even the borders they're going to be looking at for footage. And they're going to geofence, right? They're going to be looking at all the devices that were in the area, and they're going to build intelligence off of that. And I dare say they're going to spend quite a bit of time looking at what was taking place inside the museum the morning of, the day before, the week before, the months before this heist occurred. These guys were clearly well informed. They knew right where to go, right when to go. And so that took some time and some preparation and planning, right? So I think the investigators are going to spend some time trying to suss all of that out. You mentioned
How do
the
you
possibility
decide,
of an
Tim?
insider. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's it. You're taking me right where I wanted to go. Go ahead.
The insider threat, clearly that's on everybody's mind today. I will tell you, historically, if you look at FBI statistics on this, they've been pretty standard for the last 30 or 40 years, right? Most museum heists have some insider threat component to it. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it was staff, like a guard or a docent or someone of that nature. It might well mean somebody that was a vendor, a contractor, maybe a maintenance person. But inevitably, there's usually somebody in a position of trust that is compromising that trust and giving up valuable details. And so I think they're going to look at that strongly in this case.
Well, Tim, I look forward to hearing the next chapter in this. And I got to tell you, there's very, very rarely that I get bad news. Look, if it were America, I'd feel differently about it. If it were something that mattered to us as people, the way this does to the French. But it's nice to be able to have a little bit of a smile and be somewhat amused by bad news for a change. Tim Carpenter, thank you very much for your expertise. I look forward to the next chapter with you.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
4 minutes and 15 seconds. Actually, a good buddy of mine was in the Thomas Crown affair. He delivered one of his best lines ever. He said, "Yes." Over the weekend, Trump's ceasefire deal with Israel and Hamas was broken. Who says? It's not what the American government thinks. They don't think the ceasefire was broken. They think it's Hamas being what Hamas is, which is a bunch of terrorists. Is that making it too easy on them? Is Israel now going to go back in? Or are we a step closer to seeing a new player involved here? Like who? I'm glad you asked. The answer next.
We made a deal with Hamas that, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated, and they know that.
Who is we? Did Hamas do enough to trigger what we will do? And when are these people on social media going to start telling the truth about the situation there? Why are they blaming Israel for this? Why? 59 countries involved in this deal. You hear anybody blaming Israel? So let's talk about the state of play and what could happen next, okay? Man who negotiated peace deals under 5 U.S. presidents, Republican and Democratic. Former State Department negotiator, my friend and mentor, Aaron David Miller. ADM, first, do you believe that the deal was broken? The president doesn't seem to think so.
Look, what I believe, Chris, is that you've got two parties pledged to one another's mutual destruction. There's no trust, there's no confidence. They're not directly negotiating with one another. This isn't Israel and Egypt with the U.S. trying to broker a deal or agreement between Israel and Switzerland. So there was no doubt that this was not going to go off smoothly. The takeaway from this, Chris, and I know you're not going to want to hear it, is that Donald Trump is Bigfooting this. And his main preoccupation is to prevent Benjamin Netanyahu from re-entering the war and going back to what we witnessed over the course of the last 2 years. And as a consequence of that, he is, it seems to me, I wouldn't say trivializing is the right word, but he's more or less giving Hamas a pass both with respect to the return of the 15 tragically deceased hostages and with respect to the incident that occurred Sunday morning when two Hamas operatives, maybe command and control, have broken down, maybe not, opened fire, killed two Israelis with an anti-tank missile and wounded three more. His main preoccupation, that's why the Vice President of the United States is going, demonstrate, show the flag, but essentially, I think, to make sure that Netanyahu understands that there can be no return to the kind of conflict, Chris, that we witnessed over the course of the last 2 years. Just one more point. I might add that the president has now authorized his team to meet directly. First in March, Adam Boehler, hostage negotiator, had 3 meetings with Khalil al-Hayya, the key external leadership. He's on Israel's list, by the way. And in Sharm el-Sheikh, Witkoff, on instruction from the president, sat down with Hayya again. Before we're done with this, if it moves forward, president's going to end up opening up a direct channel with Hamas's external leadership. My read.
Ooh, that's an interesting option. All right, here's my read, far inferior to your read. I accept your read. I don't think we means Bibi Netanyahu. I'm sure he would love to go back in. I think it's very impressive that they didn't do it in any impressive fashion, given losing 2 of their own wrongly. I think we may be a new phase and a new player where they will want, this coalition will want a Muslim country to go in and attack Hamas for what they did. Now, I know what you say. You won't see those kinds of people shooting at Palestinians, and they're not going to watch Israelis shoot at them. I get that. But could you be wrong?
Are you kidding me? Ask my wife, Lindsay. Yeah, I can be wrong. And my judgment has not been the greatest. But on this one, I just think unless a Muslim country or an Arab country, let's say the Azeris or the Indonesians, those are the likely candidates that appear to want to do this, unless they're convinced that they can deploy in something other than a free fire zone, with Hamas still as an insurgency and the IDF using their own intel to preempt and prevent Hamas actions, I think it's going to be very hard to persuade them to deploy in any serious numbers.
That is true. This is going to be tricky. But with Iran neutered the way they are temporarily, there is a vacuum to fill. And as you said, there are many who would like to enter it as the kind of Islamic, if not Islamist, tough guy in the region. Well, look, we're going to keep watching it. As you told me in the beginning, no one said it was going to be smooth. I don't think that what's happening online where people are saying that Israel broke it, I got to tell you, that's not what U.S. authorities and that's not what the coalition members think, that it was Israel. But facts be damned on social media these days.
Not an accurate read.
Yeah. Aaron David Miller, I appreciate you as always, and to be continued. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Love you. Take care.
All right. We'll be right back. Little closing argument for you. 2 points. One couldn't matter less. One couldn't matter more. This weekend, when I was sparring with somebody doing some self-defense stuff, I had a moment where many of you wish you could have been there, which is to give me a shot in rubbing against the top of my lip, which is why it's red. But it wasn't you, and it'll never be you, so get over it. Now, here's the point that couldn't matter more. People are misunderstanding what the protests this weekend were about the same way they didn't get what MAGA was about back in the beginning, okay? Do not mistake the mascots for the message. Now, one thing I will tell you about mascots when it comes to a real movement, a populist, grievance-based movement, is you cannot take down the movement by attacking the mascot. That is the answer to the question of why don't they care about any of these allegations against Trump? because they care about their grievance more, and they believe that he cares and wants to fight their fight. Even if others don't, that's what it is. And no matter how imperfect that mascot is, he's their guy. Same thing on the left. You can attack their mascots. It doesn't change the grievance. And the grievance is real. People are hurting. The majority of families in this country are one emergency away from being broke, being out of their house, out of health care, out of a job. It's real, and we'll stay on it. Leland Vittert starts right now.
I don't know whether to think about the thing that can't matter or the thing that can, because looking at you, I just can't get over it. I'm sorry. You handled it very well, my friend, very well. Next time I would suggest ice packs.
Next time I'll keep my mouth shut and my mouthpiece in.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's good to see you, my friend, as always.